everyone, and welcome back to another session of our Midweek Refuels. I'm Pastor John Widdifield of Remnant Church in Fuquay-Varina, North Carolina, and I am absolutely thrilled to have each and every one of you here today as we gather for a moment of reflection, inspiration, and hopefully spiritual growth. Together, we will embark on a journey of self-discovery and spiritual nourishment, exploring wisdom, faith, and the richness of our shared human experience. So let's dive in, connect, and allow these lessons to enlighten our paths and guide us on this beautiful journey that we take together called life. Whether it is John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress or even the autobiography of St. Ignatius of Loyola, I find within the Christian corpus a path to discovering my meaning and even what it is to be, or to be human, or to be in existence. You might believe that being is a simple matter, but it really isn't. There has been book after book after book written on what does it mean to be. What do you think? What does it mean to be? Try the simple exercise of defining being. Now, don't go looking it up. I want you to define it from a philosophical perspective, not a Webster Dictionary perspective. What does it mean to even have being? And in what realm, spiritual, material, ethereal, what realm does it take place? We say it enough, or do we exist in all of them? We say that God is. We say, I think, therefore I am. God's ultimate title of I am declares that he has being because he is. Even if the meta being, or even if he's the meta being, or even if he's the uber being, or the being with a capital B beside of it, he still has being. He says so. When I say that I am, what does that mean? I mean, I don't know what it means for me. How am I going to know what it means for God? More importantly, when God says I am, what in the world could that possibly mean? And why is that name sacred? Am I a being with a little b? And God a being with a big B? Well, the conundrum gets worse. I have to make theological decisions to advance further down this road of being, or this road of thought about being. Are all beings separate? Is God a being different than my being? Or am I somehow a part of the universal being? Am I animistic, pantheistic, atheistic, monotheistic? Which is what I am. I am monotheistic, and I hope you are too. Do I have even the mental framework to comprehend this thing that I call being? I throw the word around flippantly enough. I know that I am familiar with the theater of the mind, Descartes. I have reached the limits of logical analysis, as Descartes did when he wrote, I think, therefore I am. The idea that the eternal God would announce that his name is tied to being, and being makes some sense to me when I am in my most humble of moments. When I had my first philosophy class, my world shifted out from under me in a good way. Other people were asking how much being a doctor makes. Some were looking to make money doing something that they like heavy metal or basket weaving. I too was looking at something I could learn in college to make a decent living without being miserable all the days of my life. I chose IT, wrong decision. The first reading assignment that I was given was, believe it or not, yes, it was a Philosophy 101 class. That insane philosopher professor, whom I shall always love for the gift that he gave me, started our dumb, naive, and ignorant rear ends out on, you will not believe it, The Fundamental Principles of the Metaphysics of Morals by Immanuel Kant. I went home scared out of my mind. I can't pronounce the title of this monstrosity. How in the world am I going to read it, much less understand it? I don't understand the title at the time. And from the opening lines, I found the honey and ambrosia which would nourish my life for the rest of my days. Wouldn't make me much, but man, it was nourishment to the soul. The next easy read he had us tackle was Sein und Zeit, or Being and Time by the philosopher Heidegger. What a tome that is, an exercise in self-flagellation. What in the world a 101 class was doing even opening this tome is beyond me. But I figured God had plans with me, so everyone else had to suffer through it if I did. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. From the opening lines of Sein und Zeit, I was caught and mesmerized, like the opening line of Stephen King's Gunslinger. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. The equivalent philosophical opening line was by Heidegger, and it flows like this. For manifestly you have long been aware of what you mean when you use the expression being. We, however, who used to think we understood it, have now become perplexed, unquote. I would like to say I learned something from that book, but to be honest, I, who used to think I understood it, have become perplexed. I have enjoyed metaphysics, my favorite, epistemology, ethics, logic, aesthetics, and the philosophy of religion, but all of that is just mind games and language tricks. There is a truth. I don't mean to say there's not. There is a truth. There is a philosopher's stone which alters the inner alchemy and turns lead into gold. There is a rebirth. There is a higher and free being which is only known, not understood. Augustine has found this higher philosophy, a philosophy that frees from all other philosophies. You must escape the mason jar to know the shape of jelly. What does that mean? Well, the same 101 professor I have been talking about described this idea of understanding being in this way. Let's say a bunch of jelly jars on the pantry shelf started to ask each other, hey guys, what shape is jelly? Do we have being? And if we do, what shape is that being? Well, the smartest jar of jelly on the shelf, one in the group, would pipe up, well, it's cylindrical, you morons. But all that makes that jar, that intelligent jar, all that makes him is the smartest jar in the pantry. He falls short of full comprehension, doesn't he? They have always been cylindrical. They are all the same shape all the time in the pantry, and yet their predicament deprives them of the knowledge that if they were free of the mason jar, they could be whatever shape they wanted to be. But they are trapped, not just trapped, they are limited in scope, sight, and comprehension. Their minds cannot even comprehend a way to be that is anything other than how they are. Jesus sends a spirit to us that releases us from our jars and allows us not only to see, but to experience shapes that are unfamiliar to the satanic simulation that's around us. Augustine writes, to the confusion of everyone still seeking sweet frivolity out of life, he writes, quote, how sweet it suddenly was to me to be deprived of all the sweets of frivolity, and what a joy to throw away what I had feared to lose. For you cast those sweetnesses out of me, you, my true and highest sweetness, you cast them out and entered in their stead. You who are sweeter than every pleasure, but not to flesh and blood, brighter than any light, but deeper than any secret place, exalted above all rank, but not to those who exalt themselves. Now my mind was free from the gnawing cares of politicking, of getting, of wallowing, of scratching the mange of my lust, and I spoke openly to you, my radiance, my riches, and my salvation, O Lord, my God, unquote. He has found a place outside the jelly jar. Even though he would still live amongst the jelly, dwell amongst the jelly, and communicate with the jelly, he is no longer cylindrical. He is in the world, but not of it. He is in the pantry, but he is not of the pantry. And it will cause him trials that he must endure because that knowledge does indeed make him different for all times. He speaks of joy outside of the glass. He speaks of freedom outside of the mason jar lid. He no longer lives by the rules of cylindrical thinking. He no longer pursues endeavors for money or pleasure, but instead follows the dictates of the Spirit. And the Spirit is like the wind, not like jelly. So which are you? Are you wind or are you jelly? Are you flesh or are you spirit? Let us turn to Book 9 and read chapters 1 through 2. And if you need a copy of this work, it is in the public domain, and it can be downloaded from Project Gutenberg. I recommend them for all sorts of different things, not just this book. Beginning in chapter 1, Book 9. O Lord, I am your servant. I am your servant and the son of your handmaid. You have burst my bonds. I will offer you the sacrifice of praise. Let my heart and tongue praise you, and let all my bones say, Lord, who is like unto you? Let them say this and answer me. Tell my soul, I am your salvation. Who am I? And what sort of I? What manner of evil did I not do? Or if I did not do, did I say? Or if I did not say, did I will? But you, O Lord, are good and merciful. With your right hand, you had regard for the depth of my deadness. And from the lowest places in my heart, you drained away the abyss of corruption so that I should not will at all what I willed, but will what you willed. But where throughout that space of years had my free will been? And from what deep and secret place was it called forth at a moment's notice? The free will to submit my neck to your easy yoke and my shoulders to your light burden. Christ Jesus, my helper and my redeemer. How sweet it suddenly was to me to be deprived of all the sweets of frivolity, and what a joy to throw away what I had feared to lose. For you cast those sweetnesses out of me, you, my true and highest sweetness, you cast them out and entered in their stead, you who are sweeter than every pleasure, but not to flesh and blood, brighter than any light, but deeper than any secret place, exalted above all rank, but not to those who exalt themselves. Now my mind was free from the gnawing cares of politicking, of getting, of wallowing, of scratching the mange of my lust, and I spoke openly to you, my radiance, my riches, and my salvation, O Lord, my God. It seemed good to me in your sight not to make a sudden break with my routine, but quietly to withdraw the offices of my tongue from the fairs where verbal fluency is bought and sold. No more would boys meditating not on your law and your peace, but on the madness and the lies and the warfare of the law courts purchase from my lips the weapons for their mad passion. By happy coincidence, there were now only very few days left over until the vintage vacation, and I decided to bear them out and retire at the end of the year in the regular way, and having been redeemed by you at a price, not return to offer myself for sale. My counsel, therefore, was open before you, but not open to men, except to our band of friends. We agreed among ourselves not to publish the matter abroad to anyone, albeit you had given us, as we climbed out of the valley of weeping, and sang the song of ascents, sharp arrows and burning coals against the deceitful tongue, which pretending to give counsel speaks for the accuser, and which gobbles up like meat and drink what it pretends to love. You had pierced my heart with arrows of your love, and I carried fixed deep in my vital organs your words and the examples of your servants, those whom once stained black you have made radiant, and once dead you have made alive. These words and those examples heaped up on my pondering heart, burnt and took away the slumber that oppressed me. They kept me from falling over the brink into the abyss and set me so fiercely ablaze that every breath of accusation from the deceitful tongue could only inflame me more and not put out the fire. But since there would be those who, for your name's sake, which you have sanctified through the earth, would praise my avowed purpose, it seemed like self-glory not to wait for the vacation, which was so near, and to abandon my public profession, exposed as it was for all to see. Then everyone would turn their heads toward me and reflect how I had wished to anticipate the beginning of the vacation, which was so near at hand, and it would be noised abroad that I had been avid to make a show of greatness. And what business of mine was it to have my state of mind so publicly dissected and for our good to be blasphemed? Moreover, that summer my lungs had begun to give way under all the pressure of my literary work. I had difficulty catching my breath, and the pains in my chest were evidence that it was damaged, no longer capable of producing a clear, full-toned voice. This circumstance had at first unsettled me greatly, since I was now in effect compelled by necessity to lay down the burden of my teaching duties, or at any rate to take a break from them, to see if I could be cured or recover my strength. But when the full will to leave myself free and to see that you, our Lord, arose and was confirmed in me, Lord, you know these things, I began to rejoice, since this gave me a pretext, and not a spurious one, for my actions, which would lessen the offense that men took at it, men who, for their own children's sake, would have me never be free. Therefore, I was full of joy and bore with the space of time until the end of term. There might have been some 20 days or so, but it needed strength to bear with them. For the greed that had always been my partner in bearing the burden of my professional business had now departed from me, and I remained alone with the burden. Or would have done, had patience not come to my aid. Let some servant of yours and brother of mine say I was wrong to do so, to have suffered myself to sit, even for one day, in the seat of falsehood. Now that my heart was full of the thought of serving you, I offer no defense, but you, most merciful Lord, did you not forgive and pardon me this sin also in the holy waters of baptism? No more would boys meditating not on your law and your peace, but on the madness and the lies and the warfare of the law courts, purchase from my lips the weapons for their mad passion. Unquote. There is the life of the flesh, and there is the life of the spirit. The sarx and the spirit are at war with each other. They will not coexist. One of them must rule. One will set you free. The other will. The other is just a mason jar through which you see the pantry like through a dark glass. You can be all excited that you are as smart as the smartest jelly jar in the fridge, or you can break free from yourself through the gift that Jesus Christ gives you through the sacrifice of his blood on the cross. Christ is the philosopher's stone. Christ is the golden fleece, and he is the ultimate destroyer of mason jars. Christ is the philosopher king. Hail to the king.